Good morning, everyone. It's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. So, I have some fun little cards that I want to share with you that feature some products from the Bloom Where You Are Planted suite. So, this particular suite of products has a bundle called Plentiful Plants. So, it has like a stamp set here and then a variety of different dies that you can use to cut out the images in the stamp set and cut out some of the images in the designer papers. So we're going to play with this particular stamp set today and some of these fun products. And I'm going to show you how to make this really simple angle card design. I should say angle design with the designer paper. The card isn't really an angle, just the designer paper. So it's pretty easy to do, and it just gives your card a really nice look. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So good morning, everybody. Hello, hello. So before we get started with this, I just want to show you a couple of things about the designer papers. So the designer paper, like I said, is called Bloom Where You Are Planted. And so this is just one of the patterns. And I like these patterns that have the little pieces that you can cut out and use on your cards. So that's what I did today. You can stamp these little images, but I just really like the images that are already done for me. So I like to stamp, I like to color, but it's also fun to just kind of use some of these images in the paper. So most of these images that you see here, actually, I think all of them need to be cut out by hand. So you have to do a little bit of fussy cutting with these images. But there are some other images in this designer paper that you can use the dies to cut out. So the dies will cut out, like these leaf images and this particular image. And some of the other images in here you'd have to cut out by hand. But so you have the options of, just cutting them out with your scissors, or you have an option to cut some of them out with the dies from this particular bundle. All right, good morning, you guys. So let me show you how I made these. I'm going to put these to the side. And I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer here. So what I did is, in order to create this angle, um, I took a let's see, this is 4¼ by 5½. This is just a piece of one of the designer papers from that particular pack. And so what I want to do is just kind of cut an angle across this piece. And then we can actually make two cards with it. So that's kind of fun. I like that. So here's how I did it. So I put this in my paper trimmer and I took and lined up. Oh, let's move this down so you can see it. I took and lined up the right corner with like the 3½ inch mark here. And then I tilted this bottom section here and lined up this left corner on the 3/4 inch mark on this side, on the right side of this trimmer blade. So I hope that makes sense. So this is 3½, and this is 3/4. And so by lining it up, this way, I can cut a really nice little angle design. And then I kind of get the same type of angle each time I cut if I line it up that way. So you'll end up with two pieces. Let's move this out of the way here. So you'll end up with two pieces that you can use to create these two cards. So you'll have the larger piece and then you'll have the smaller piece. So it's just kind of a fun, just a different kind of design, fun way to use some of the products. So let me show you how to create the card. Let's start with this one. I'll create both of them for you. So for this one, I just started out with a piece of white cardstock for the base of my card. So this is just your standard card base. So I cut it at 5½ by 8½ and then just scored it down the middle at 4¼ inches to create the base of this card. And then I cut a piece of pattern paper. So this is pattern paper from this particular pack, the Bloom Where You Are Planted pack. So I cut a piece that would cover the whole entire front of the card. So this piece is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And we're just going to put this right on the front. So that'll cover the whole front of the card. And then I played around with these little paper lattice pieces. So um, these come in a pack, I want to say a pack of 20, but I'm not sure offhand. But there's a pack, there's quite a few of them in here. And so what I like to do with them, I mean, you can use them whole like this on your card, or you can cut them in half, and you can cut them in half with your paper trimmer, or you can just use a scissors. I'm going to just use a scissors because we're going to cover up the bottom section here. So you won't see this on my uh, card. So one of the ways that I like to adhere these pieces, let's move this out of the way here. I'm going to bring in some scrap paper. So I like to use a sponge and just adhere, add some adhesive and adhere this to the card. You can use, what do you call it? Adhesive sheets if you want, I guess. Well, adhesive sheets really wouldn't work too well with this because you're not cutting these out. Never mind, scratch that. Use liquid glue. So I just dab that glue on here, and it just makes it go on smoother if you use like a sponge to do your dabbing. And then you can just adhere it to the top of your card. Let's see, where's the rest of my stuff here? Then I'm going to use that smaller angled piece, and I saved the larger one for the other card. So I added just like this little piece of cardstock here just to kind of accent it a little bit. So that's a piece of evening evergreen cardstock. So this is just about 5 1/2 inches long. It's about a 1/2 inch wide. And so what I did is just add some glue to this bottom edge, the angled edge. And then I just lay this on here. And I just let the excess just kind of overlaps off the side of this piece. And then we're just going to trim this down. So this is just a nice way to add a little bit of accent to your angled pieces. And you can just trim off the excess. There we go. So we'll get that out of the way. Bring back our card here. And then we can go ahead and just add this piece to the bottom of our card so that it covers up the lattice where we cut it. We'll just add that. And then you got a really fun little look here. And then, as I mentioned, you can cut out a variety of different images from the designer paper. So I just cut out 2 of these images, and we're just going to adhere these together. So I'm just going to turn them a little bit, get a good look here. That looks pretty good. So we'll adhere those together. And I'm just using a couple dimensionals to do that. And then we'll add it to the flower pot. So with this particular bundle, there's just a variety of different plant images, of course, that you can use to just create some fun little cards. Now you can also do some stamping. So I stamped this little pot image on a scrap piece of cinnamon cider cardstock, and then I just cut it out with one of the dies. So I don't know if you can see the detail in this, but it just kind of has like a worn look to it. So it's kind of fun. So this will just lay there for a second. Add a little dimensional here. And Let's put our little pot on here, and then we can just tuck this underneath. So I'm popping all of these up with dimensionals, which makes it a little bit easier to play around with the design and just kind of tuck it into our little pot. There we go. And then the last thing I did is just add a little greeting. So there's some really fun greetings in this particular set. So there we go. And then you can add some little gems or whatever kind of embellishments you want. So that's the first card. And then this is the second card that I'm going to show you how to make. So this one uses that other piece. Let me grab all my pieces here. So this uses the larger piece that was left over when we cut that designer paper in on that angle design. So I have some additional pieces of paper here that I'm going to use in the background. So I'm just using some smaller pieces just to kind of provide a little bit of accent behind this red brick or this brown brick. So this is like a 1¼ inch. It doesn't really matter what size it is, just as long as it's long enough to go across your card front here. So this should just be, we're only going to use just a little bit of this. So this needs to be 4¼ inches long, but the width of it doesn't really matter because most of this is going to get covered up. So, and then this piece is going to go down on the bottom. So this is about a 2-inch wide piece, and it's again 4¼ inches long. And so we'll put this down on the bottom. So that way, you know, a little bit of your card front kind of shows through on the bottom. So you get that little bit of accent on the top and bottom. So I'm going to set this aside for a second. We'll bring this back, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add one of those strips to the bottom of this piece. And then we'll just snip off the excess. And then we'll have a nice little accented piece. So in case you missed it, this is Evening Evergreen cardstock, if you're wondering what color I'm using. So let's bring this back, and then we'll go ahead and add this. So we're going to add this over our designer paper that's on our card front. And hopefully it fits. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, so now we can go ahead and decorate this any way that we want. So again, I used some stamped images and I used some images from the designer paper. So these two are going to get adhered together. So we'll put a little bit of glue there. And then I'm just going to add some dimensionals to the back of this. Now I guess what really drew me to this was this little macrame hanger. I just really like that look on the card. It's just really cute. All right, so there's our floral. There's our little plant. And then I cut out one of those macrame hangers. So this die is in the bundle. And so I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. I'm just going to sponge some glue on the back there. And once you have some glue sponged on here, then you can just lay this over the top. And it should stay in place. So we'll add this. So there are a lot of pieces. You know, last week I showed you guys the pansy patch or pansy petals. And there were a lot of little pieces in there. There are a lot of pieces in here, but You can make these with as many or as few pieces as you want. So that's the nice thing. So we'll add that. And then I also have another little plant that I cut out of the designer paper. And then I'm using one of the small little uh, basket or pot dies here, little tiny one. So we'll add a little bit of glue, and then we'll add our little plant. And I'm going to add a little dimensional here to hold this in place. I use dimensionals a lot to hold this stuff in place. So there we go. So that's going to go there. But before I add that, I'm going to add my little greeting. So this little greeting that I happen to be using fits on a 1/2 inch wide piece of white cardstock is what I'm using. So it works out perfect for using up little scrap pieces. And then we'll just add this other little plant above here. And there you go. So pretty easy. It just requires cutting out a couple of these pieces, but I think these cards are just adorable. So I really like playing with this set. I liked it so much that I decided to do my featured tutorial with this particular set. So every month I put together a tutorial that I send out to people as a little gift when they place an order with me. So this month's tutorial features this particular bundle. So I just want to actually give you a little sneak peek of some of the other cards that I created. So these are the cards that are in my tutorial. And they're just, I just had a lot of fun, cutting out all these little pieces with the designer paper and then using the dies to create these pieces. The stamping I did on here really was mostly the greeting and then a couple of the little pots for the plants. It just most of it was assembly and just kind of arranging the plants. So it was a lot of fun. So this is my featured tutorial. So I did link to all of these cards in the description with this video, so you can find more information about how to get the tutorial. And of course, you can see these other cards. Let me bring these back. You can find these other cards out on my blog, along with some information about this month's host code and how to get that tutorial. So there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed these little card ideas. Like I said, it is a fun little um, bundle of products to play with, a fun suite of products actually to play with. So I hope you check it out, and I hope you enjoyed all the cards today. So have a wonderful day, everyone, and I will talk to you again next week. Take care.